In 1889, Copper King W.A. Clark and 74 other men wrote a state constitution to serve the needs of Montana's powerful interests, with a weak governor, a secretive legislature, and special tax deals for the powerful. After 60 years under the copper collar, Montana was declared the nearest thing to a colony of any American state. The Anaconda Mining Company even owned most Montana newspapers, the Copper Press. The corporate dominance of Montana's political affairs was unique in American history. 70 years after statehood, the Copper Press was finally sold, and thousands of World War II veterans had been educated under the GI Bill. Newly enlightened Montanans wanted out from under the copper collar, and big winds of change roared across the Treasure State. Changing Montana's constitution was the top priority. Strengthening the governorship, opening up the legislature, empowering citizens. Voices of Montana women, totally silenced in 1889, rang out loud and clear for these changes. When the Constitutional Convention began, 19 women were among the elected delegates. And when the delegates came together in convention, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, men and women, young and old, sat alphabetically as equals, Montanans just wanting to make their state better. And so they did, producing a constitution for the ages, the last best constitution. Now, at its 50th anniversary, Evan Barrett and real history makers of the time shine a light on the creation of this remarkable Montana Constitution.
Welcome back to Last Best Constitution. We welcome you to this series that is being produced during the year of the 50th anniversary of Montana's 1972 Constitution. We're celebrating the Constitution. We are elevating it in the minds of the voters and the citizens of Montana. We are reminiscing about how it happened. How did this remarkable document, which is often cited as the best state constitution in America by far, how did that happen about in 1972? The times were changing, as Bob Dylan would say, back in those days, and there was a lot of reasons why, but the change was in the winds in Montana in the 1960s and 70s. Former Governor Ted Schwinden has made the point to me many times that people who went off to World War II came back aware of new cultures and aware of war itself, but of cultures and things that were different than being, as he said, it was different than being down in Tule Creek down there. And they came back with new eyes at how they looked at things. And then the GI Bill occurred, and so many of them got an education. And as they got that education and their new perspective, they gradually started looking at what was happening with their government in Montana, and they were able to look a little closer into the dark corners of Montana government, and a lot of what they saw they didn't like. So there was a national mood for change in convention and constitutions, but most states did not succeed in adopting a new constitution. Montana did. So there was this real effort to do it in Montana, and it panned out for Montana, but it was a multi-year process. It didn't happen overnight. The Constitutional Convention met for 54 days of remarkable work together to produce this document, but there were several years of work in front of that made a difference. The people of Montana were asked the question, do you want to have a constitutional convention? And that was placed, the 1969 legislature placed that on the 1970 ballot. And when the people voted for it, 65% said, yes, we want a constitutional convention. We think our Constitution definitely needs changing, and there were a lot of good reasons why. So all of a sudden, there was a vote in November of 1970, yes, let's have a constitutional convention. But already a constitutional revision commission had been at work and had been doing research and writing to prepare the delegates with information they could act upon. Lo and behold, after November, the special election in November, the delegates showed up in November 29th to organize. And one of those delegates, and at this time there's only 10 of the original 100 delegates are still with us. And let me emphasize, those were citizen delegates. If you were an elected official in Montana, if you were a legislator, if you were a mayor, if you were a county commissioner, you could not run for the county commission. So these 100 citizen delegates showed up November 29th, 1971, to organize into a convention. And one of those delegates we're blessed to have with us today so he can share his insights on the Constitution, and that's Roger Wagner. I want to welcome you to Last Best Constitution.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. One of the things we try to do in this is give people a flavor of who those citizen delegates were. Not a traditional politician, someone who was always running for office. So tell us a little bit about your family and your background.
Well, I'm number 9 out of 10.
Aha.
And my father only went to the 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
And he was quite determined that we would get a good education.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother also was that way. She was a former teacher. She was a graduate of the normal school.
Oh, yeah.
And came out to there and was a teacher.
By the normal school, you mean Western?
Normal school was, at that time, meant that you went to school for 2 more years after you
to become a teacher.
become a teacher.
Where was her normal school?
I
Remember?
don't remember.
I know my great aunt went to down to Dillon and did the same thing, but yeah.
No, she was from Minnesota.
Ah.
So she went to normal school, and then there's these jobs opening in Montana, and she came to one of the one-room schools, and
in Nashua?
No. Her school was 3 miles from my grandfather's farm.
Uh-huh.
And where he'd homesteaded in 1914.
Mm-hmm.
And then my father was, of course, here was a...
Attractive school marm.
Yes. There weren't very many of those.
Yeah.
So that's how they got together, from as much as I can tell.
Uh-huh.
But he was also a musician of sorts. He played the drum and he played the accordion.
Oh, yeah.
And
an accordion and a drum. Yeah, that's pretty good.
yeah. Well, that's what attracted my mother to him, I guess, is that...
Yeah, it's that way. She was a groupie?
Yeah, I guess you'd call her that.
Yeah. I have my brothers some are professional musicians, and it does have an attraction. It does have an attraction. Isn't that funny? Yeah.
But at any rate, then they got married, and one of my father's uncles wanted to go back to South Dakota, and so he sold him his little farm. That's how it came to be.
Yeah, so next thing you know, you got your parents after that's your grandfather and grandmother, is that right? Or
No, my father
and... Oh, your father was a musician. Okay.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah.
He's mostly a farmer.
Yeah.
And my grandfather was...
You know, that accordion thing, I was often told that what would happen if you would merge an accordion with a banjo, what would you get? And the answer is an empty room.
Yeah, okay. I can believe that.
Yeah. So how about that? Where were you born?
Well, my mother was back visiting her mother, which was in northern Minnesota when I was born.
At St. Joseph, is that
Yep.
right? The little town of St. Joseph, just
Yep.
outside of St. Cloud?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was born in the house there in St. Joseph.
You were born in a house too? So was I.
And the doctor came afterwards and did whatever doctors do to babies. I only had 4, so I never did find out.
You know, I was born in a house in Red Lodge, Montana. And my parents, when I was born, there was no incubator in there, obviously, and the doctor had it. So they wrapped me up and they opened the oven door and put me on the oven door so it would kind of give me an incubator effect of heating up the little baby. And I've always said I've been half-baked ever since.
Oh.
You know?
Well, I was just, surprised when I learned that I was born in Minnesota.
Yeah.
It,
But you were, at the time, was your mom and dad were in Nashville, were they? Or?
yeah,
Yeah. Which is in?
northeast Montana.
Yeah, which county are we talking about?
Valley County.
Valley County, so
Yeah.
just between Glasgow and
Wolf Point.
And Wolf Point. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great wheat-growing country up there.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you were born in Nashua, and
No, in Minnesota.
or Minnesota, but you were raised in Nashua.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Then at that time, our local public school wasn't exactly stellar. And so my parents sent me to St. John's Preparatory School.
yeah, which is about 5 miles from St. Joseph.
Yep.
Yeah.
And went to school 6 days a week there.
Yeah. I'll tell you. Yeah, that was a very rigorous education. And,
Yes.
and you went through that all the way through high school then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to learn Latin there.
Oh.
I didn't, but
Yeah, you were supposed to. Now, that was a Benedictine
yes.
order
Yes.
of Catholic priests
Yes.
that were at St. John's, right? In the
right.
prep school there, yeah. I went to that same, I didn't go to the prep school, but I ended up at St. John's. So did you continue on?
Yes, I went on to the university there at St. John's University.
You know, great school.
Yeah, and because I was a graduate of the prep school, I got a small decrease in the
This tuition.
tuition. Yeah, but the tuition was $600 a year at that time.
Yeah. By the time I got there, it was $1,300, and boy, that seemed like a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it went up every year that I was in university also, but I was only had to pay the $600 because that was
Yeah. You were a legacy student, they call them, you know.
okay.
It wasn't exactly like George Bush and George W. Bush, you know. It was a different legacy. But, well, so you went to St. John's University, and what did you get your degree in?
Economics.
Economics.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that why you were on the Revenue Committee, you think?
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah.
You know, thought I knew something.
Well, don't we all at that age?
Yes.
You know. Now, tell me, you went after you got your degree. Did you just go back? You go back to the farm, or?
I went back to the farm because, for one thing, I had Vietnam looking at me,
Oh yeah.
and also my dad turned 65, and he wanted to.
Turn it over.
Well, he didn't want to turn it over. He just wanted to slow down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what Ted Schwinden, you know, Governor Schwinden was going to the University of Minnesota,
Yeah.
getting a PhD when he was called home to take care of the farm.
Yeah.
And but sometimes if you were from far eastern Montana, it was closer to go to Minnesota than it was to come to western Montana.
Oh, well, yes, at least you could jump on the train. And,
Yeah, in those days.
yeah, and you had 2 trains a day
Yeah.
at that time.
I did that once. I did one train ride to St. Cloud from Billings, and it was quite an experience. But in any case, you went home. Now, your first interface with the idea of the Constitutional Convention, tell me about that how that first came up to you.
Well, I really hadn't given any thought to running for these positions. I knew it was coming up. But Senator Gordon Bollinger.
Oh, Gordon, I was a good friend of his. He's a good guy.
He came out to the farm and he laid the application on the kitchen table, and he said, "Roger, you would do well here." So,
With that distinguished gray hair,
oh
he
yeah,
was someone you would take seriously.
yes. Well, and he was a family friend.
Yeah, that too.
So, but anyway, my father looked at him and he said, "Tom, he needs to give some back. Do a little public service." It was on the table there, was waiting for me to sign.
There it was.
Yeah,
That's a salesman's technique.
yeah,
It had the pen right ready for you.
yes.
Would you sign this insurance policy? Only this time you were signing on to public service.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was terrific. Yeah.
He talked me into it, kind of, arm twisting.
Yeah.
And then I started looking into it some, and I saw I'd been watching, how the Supreme Court would say, well, that doesn't apply to this, and you can do this, and you can do that, because the old Constitution, everything was written down.
A little too tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really constrained things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, times had changed from when they used a horse and a buggy to go to town.
You had a horse and buggy constitution in the jet age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically, it was in the 1800s,
Yeah. Well, by the time you evaluated it, here you were, you needed more than a horse and buggy approach.
Yes.
And
but anyway, I learned something. Not enough, but I learned something.
And so now tell me about running in a rural large, because you were in Great Falls. They were inside that small county. They elected 13 people.
Yeah.
And out among 4-county area?
Yes.
That was a lot of space, and you elected how many?
4.
4 of them. Okay. So tell me about campaigning for.
Well, just to tell you the difference of what it was, we were supposed to go up to Scobie and talk to people. And Mark Ed Sharp calls me up. Well, why don't we ride together?
Yeah.
Here's a Republican, you know.
Yeah.
Why don't we ride together? And so, of course, we talked a little bit about this. But then he came in this big Oldsmobile of his.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
And then the next time we were going to go to Plentywood. And I had gotten myself, I had a fairly new Torino,
Oh.
Ford Torino, kind of a small car.
Yeah.
And he told me, no, we'll go in mine.
We'll go in mine. But it was interesting because it was a partisan elections.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll talk more about the change from that. But here you were, just neighbors in a way,
Yeah.
running for office against each other.
Yes. To speak of. Yeah.
You're on different sides, and there was 8 people running for 4 seats by then after the primary.
Yes.
Was there a lot of people in the primary? Did you get through that?
Oh, there was, what, 8? I think there's 8
Democrats.
8 or 9 Democrats.
Wow, yeah. Well, cream rises, to the top.
All right.
You meant.
But anyway, yeah, that was just an aside, how it was at that time.
Yeah.
Up there, it was so you could talk to
It was
them.
very civil.
Yeah.
Well, of course. Of course. I mean, it was. I was a young guy in government then, and we all worked together, even when we disagreed with each other. We had no problem being friendly and arguing about philosophy or politics just comes with the territory,
Yeah, but that others are kind of surprised that hear this.
It's been pretty rugged the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's a little hard for a lot of people that don't know, they've never seen it, where people got along.
Got along like that.
Yeah. That's
But
interesting.
Otherwise, I wore out a set of tires on my car.
Yeah. A lot of ground to get around.
Yes.
And it was from September to November, it was about 60, 70 days of campaigning. Was it mostly like going to the county fairs or going to Kiwanis clubs or just?
I hit all the fairs and parades and whatnot, and walk up and down the street and introduce myself. And
you must have been a pretty good retail politician because you got yourself elected.
Yes, but I absolutely hated it.
Yeah. Well, it's asking for votes is.
Yeah. I'd rather ask them to give me money.
I remember that old Tip O'Neill story where Mrs. McGillicuddy he'd shovel. She voted for. He said, "How'd you do? Did you come down and vote for me?" She said, "No, I didn't vote for you." He said, "I've for 15 years. I've shoveled your walk every time there was snow on it. I shoveled it and everything else. How come you didn't vote for me?" And she said, "Well, you didn't ask me to."
Well, that's the truth.
You got to ask.
That's absolute truth.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. So now, that's early November. You get elected.
Yes.
And you go November 29th. Tell me about your memory of the organizing meetings.
Well, I just don't recall much of that. There, we had...
You had to elect leaders.
Yeah, and we had people selecting their committees.
Yeah, they gave you, say, which committees you want to be on.
Yes.
And so you had to write 3 down, I believe.
Yeah, well, to find somebody that wanted to be on revenue and finance, because let's face it, there's very few people who know about anything about taxes.
No kidding. Yeah.
I mean, it's just. And
Everybody's got an opinion about them,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily know. Yeah.
And I had some knowledge of property
Taxes, yeah.
because when my dad turned 65, why, he didn't have enough to do, so he went and got job with the county commissioners to appraise everything in the county.
He was the kind of local appraiser, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the people from Phillips County asked him to come over and see what, because they were having trouble.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, what a mess. They've had 6 different appraisers in the last 3 years, and you could have had $100,000, which nobody had a $100,000 house. But you could have had a $100,000 house in this part of Malta and a $100,000 house in that part of Malta, and they wouldn't be taxed the same.
Not even close, yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't even be appraised. And so
you walked in with that kind of knowledge.
yeah, I knew something about it.
Yeah. Well, you know, they were organizing up, and there was a lot of behind-the-scenes discussions. Yeah. And when you watch the series, I want you to watch Marshall Murray's interview, because he was very much involved with Leo Graybill Jr., the president,
Yes.
on the restructuring. But you were aware, obviously you noted that when you got there, you didn't sit divided by party.
No,
You sat alphabetically.
yes.
Did it cause you any thoughts or anything?
No, once in a while I'd poke fun at a Republican.
Well, you got to be able to do that, you know.
But, well, this particular gentleman would come up and stand up. I have 40 quarters. Oh, you know, and then he'd give his opinion, of course.
Yeah.
And so one day I sat down, or he sat down, I said, I won't mention his first name, but I said to him, you know, my dad and my brothers and me, we have not quite as many as you have, but we've got 36 quarters.
You know, the old saying is, you know, take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself seriously.
Yeah.
You know, so you were at the organizing session. You sat alphabetically.
Yes.
And you were in the back row.
Yeah.
Although you weren't there then. It was later you went to there. You were over at the Colonial or something,
Yeah.
weren't you? And then but you were in the back row with that W.
Yep.
You're easier to get to the bathrooms.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some advantage to that.
There's got to be some advantage.
Well,
But
you chose the Revenue Committee because of your experience in that, and your economics.
yeah,
Yeah.
I figured I knew something. Not much, but something.
Yeah.
Of course, I thought I knew it all
Well,
till I got there.
yeah. Well, life will do that to you. Sterling Rigg was the chairman.
Chairman.
He was a car dealer from Kalispell.
Kalispell.
Yeah. And then Bob Noble, was he the vice chair?
No.
No, who was?
Driscoll.
Oh, yeah, Morris Driscoll from Butte.
Yeah.
Educator.
Yeah.
Oh, you had to fit with him. He had such a big family. He had about 11 kids.
Yeah. Well, of course, he didn't say very much
Yeah.
outside of once in a while he'd, no, we aren't going to do that. We won't vote for that.
Yeah.
Once in a while. And we had a teacher from Kalispell.
Let's see.
Furlong.
Oh, Noel Furlong. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, we had Mick McEwen.
Yeah, I had Mick from Anaconda.
Yeah. And we had
Swede McDonough.
Swede McDonough.
Yeah.
And we had a fellow by the name of Arts.
Bill Arts from Great Falls.
Yep.
He was a
An accountant.
accountant. Yep. Yeah.
But
Tell me about Swede McDonough, because he was
Well,
such an interesting guy.
I will. Swede, and I think about the second week we were there, he said, well, what are you doing? You aren't going home, are you? And I said, no. And he said, well, I'm not going to drive all the way to
Glendive, yeah.
So he said, why don't you meet me here Monday? And Monday I showed up, and we started reading through all the different state constitutions. And he'd say, well, what do you think about this? And I'd say, oh, I don't think that belongs in a constitution, do you? No, he said. At any rate, I got schooled pretty well by Swede McDonough.
Yeah.
Because he knew, and a very smart guy too, and he'd know what he wanted in a constitution.
He later became a district judge.
He later became the Supreme.
And then the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was, you guys, he was in a way kind of mentoring you.
Yes.
I always appreciated the folks that I learned from.
Yeah, well, I learned a lot from him, just these Monday sessions.
Uh-huh.
We'd maybe work 3-4 hours and going through all these constitutions and what we liked and what we didn't like. And so I was just amazed. I would say that if anyone would be the author, we could call the author of this section, Revenue and Finance, it'd be Swede.
Yeah.
And, he never said, oh, never ever told anyone that they were wrong.
Yeah.
He said, maybe this is better.
Yeah.
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 Which is,
A smart way to do it.
yes. Yeah. And, of course, Mick McEwen was but after he had his one big say, well, he never said much. But I certainly was helping to get that wording of a statewide appraisal.
Yeah.
Not every county have their own appraiser. And well, you heard Roger Barber talk about that yesterday, about how this county.
If you had a farm that a ranch that went over county lines or whatever, where the cattle were at what given time might have to do with whether or not they got appraised at all.
Yes.
Yeah, that's such an amazing story.
Well, when you have different appraisals and different appraisers as much as what some of the counties were experiencing.
If you know the county appraiser, you might have a good good appraisal, huh?
Well, probably.
Yeah. Well, that old tax saying, don't tax you, don't tax me, tax the guy behind the tree.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking to get more benefits out of the government and pay less.
Yes.
So, but yeah, there was a lot of abuse, at least documented abuse.
Oh,
in that.
yes.
But the counter argument was always local control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And we had some of that,
Uh-huh.
that we should keep local control, but I didn't see how it was possible
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
to have them controlled locally, because we'd have the same thing. The county commissioner would say, all right, now, we don't want to have it any higher than this, because then we'll get more money for the schools. And
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe the most significant single thing you did was that property tax centralized assessment.
that's probably the most corrected the most abuse.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I know we had a fellow that the Department of Revenue sent over to herd us in the right direction. Fellow by the name of Dennis Burr,
Well, I know Dennis very well.
and he and I got talking a lot about it. And so we didn't get any no from the Department of Revenue when we told them what we were wanting to do.
Oh yeah, I remember Dennis quite well. So that statewide assessment helped a lot. I think another interesting thing was that requirement that you had a section in there about a unified state investments.
Yes.
Because the state treasury was being emptied out of a lot of cash that went to banks to hold the money for the state, and the state never got anything out of it, and the banks loaned it out and made money like crazy. If you were a favored bank,
Yeah.
you did awfully well.
Yeah. Well, I know that up in Valley County, the monies went rotated.
Yeah.
But this was only after the Constitutional Convention.
Yes.
I don't know what they did prior.
That was a big thing of Forrest Anderson after he was elected governor. He'd seen that because he knew all about, he was so experienced in state government. He'd been Attorney General 12 years, he'd been a Supreme Court Justice, he'd been a county attorney, a legislator, and he was smart, and he watched all that stuff, and he said, we're losing so much money that we're not, and we're having to collect, they want to have a sales tax, and we're giving this money for banks to loan out for, and so he really secretly kind of pushed that into the Executive Reorganization Bill in 1971. Most people didn't know it was hidden in there. And then you guys put the requirement into the Constitution. So Forrest Anderson, Governor Anderson, was very happy about that.
Yeah, well, we had just an awful lot of people came to us, and a lot of discussion about letting especially the state retirement.
Right.
Well, we said that the state's share, they could not put in the stock market.
Right. You couldn't go play the stock market with people's retirement.
But if the individual said that he wanted a portion of his retirement or whatever, what he put in, they could go into the stock market.
Yeah, that was something, there's always somebody lined up.
Yeah.
That's happy as hell to take your money and put it in the stock market. There's an engineering term for that when you're doing construction and stuff. It's called OSEM. Say, what are you doing? He says, we're building it on somebody else's money. And that was a big deal, though, to not take undue risk with people's money. Very thoughtful provision of the Constitution. Yeah.
Well, I was quite willing to let the individual say, well,
right,
half of what I put in you can invest in the stock market. But I wasn't willing to say that what was guaranteed by the state. That,
You don't play games with that.
no.
Yeah. So unified investment was a good thing. Let me ask you about your reflections on the leadership after you sat there and watched it go on for 54 days, and the leadership of Leo Graybill and the other officers, once they decided to divide or to share power by having the chairman and vice chairman of both parties together. Democrats had 58,
Yeah.
Republicans 36, 6 independents, and yet there was a sharing of power.
Yes.
One, how did that work? And two, what did you think of the leadership?
As far as, what I dealt with every day, Sterling Rig, you couldn't have asked for a fairer man. He gave every idea and fellow delegate on the board or the committee equal chance to have their say. So I didn't have any problem with.
How about from the chair with Leo?
We didn't have anything to do with them, actually.
During debate, though, during when you're on the floor, the committee of the whole, if you will, you had to take up all the things.
Yes.
Was there anything good or bad or indifferent about his management?
I didn't think so.
You just took it as it came, huh?
Yeah, I thought it was all right. I'm not going to say that maybe you could have done it differently and been better, but then it might have been worse.
Yeah.
There's always that.
You can
side.
always do worse. Yeah, that may be one little piece of philosophy that you could put on the wall.
Yeah. Well, now I didn't like that the legislature could take a class of property and
exempt it.
That part. I didn't care for that part.
So I know that Mick McCune argued against that. Somebody petitioned against that, and you were one of those that.
This was in the committee. I was opposed to that, but when it passed the committee, I was willing to accept it. That maybe they knew something. However, I don't like what the legislature has done, exempting property.
Opportunity for shenanigans there.
Yes.
Or just simply the application of power.
Yeah.
Somebody's powerful, some industry's powerful, suddenly their taxes go down.
Well, it happened. Like feeder cattle in the state. Well, if they weren't there the whole year, why then they.
Yeah.
I didn't care for that.
Well, now I understood that was brought up with an amendment on the floor to fix it again, but the amendment didn't pass either.
No.
Yeah.
And the other thing I didn't like at all was that how much power the highway department had.
Oh, the non-diversion of money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that ought to go into the general fund and then be appropriated.
Yeah, let them fight for money like everyone else.
Yeah. And
well, they were the contractors, the highway contractors, and the department itself were a pretty heavy lobby.
Well, yeah, actually, that idea that they wouldn't have that money just never floated.
No.
not even in the committee.
Anytime you want to take money away from someone, you're going to have a little bit of resistance, or
Little
maybe
bit
a
of
lot.
fight, yeah.
Well, Dave Manning was looking over your shoulder, the senator from Hysham. You know, he was the head of the Senate
Yeah.
Highway Committee, and boy, but also in his private life, he built highways.
Yeah, well, nothing like the opportunity for,
We would call that enlightened self-interest.
yeah, something like that, yeah.
You know, well, that's terrific. Now, did you have any, since you were interested so much in education, as your family was, and you were a believer in that, did you see anything about the education that interested you, like the land trust or anything that?
Oh, you know, we knew even back then that whatever money came into from the public lands or school sections, well, that was just that much less the schools were going to get appropriated from the legislature.
Maybe lessen your appropriation, but it might lessen the taxes too a little bit. I don't know. But they did set that up under the land board,
Yeah.
who had an obligation to raise the maximum level they could,
Yes.
which you always wonder if it quite happens that way.
Well, it doesn't. There's all kinds of things that probably shouldn't be allowed, but I don't know how you're going to change them.
Well, with taxes, you know what the story is. Of course, if the more complex the taxes are, the people that can afford the best accountants
Yeah,
get the breaks.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I just didn't. I didn't want to go into that and fight over the money from the land board, because then we would have been going into the legislative, and we didn't want to be contrary to other parts of the Constitution.
Well, if you look at that education article, another thing that jumps out is the authority for management of the university system being vested in the Board of Regents and not in the legislature.
Yes.
Yeah. Your thoughts?
Well, prior to this, there was constant yammering about the czar of education, or whatever you want to call it. And so we changed it. Not our committee, but
the CONCON.
yeah. And I thought that when, I don't know how far back, there was a move to go back to that. And I said, well, it's not going to make a bit of difference. You aren't going to be happy with that either. We knew that.
Yeah. You know, the case I read about that was so interesting, because I've been studying the impact of the Anaconda Company and the copper collar around Montana.
Yeah.
Was a university professor at the UM in Missoula, then MSU. It was about 1920, wrote a book about taxation in Montana. And he was saying, here's who pays the taxes and who doesn't. And of course, the old Constitution said that you could not tax the proceeds of mining. Well, W.A. Clark was the head of that convention, so there was no surprise about that, being a copper king. But he wrote the book that said,
Yeah.
essentially, they pay almost nothing.
Yeah.
And guess what happened to him? He got fired.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Now, his name was Louis Levine. And he then, there was such a fuss that they hired him back, and he took the job for a couple months and says, but I'm out of here. I'm not going. And he went off to Michigan. But there's an example where the management and control, if you put it in the hands of politics, it doesn't serve education well.
No, but I think that I do believe that our university system is as well funded as we can. You have to remember that you have all these junior colleges all of a sudden who are one professors.
Community colleges.
Yes.
There's a lot of that, but supposedly the balance was that the appropriation process still rests with the legislature.
Yes.
So they can kind of control things, at least in terms of money, even if they can't control its management completely.
Yeah. But then, we have also started all of these tech schools where they go and learn how to be carpenters,
right? Trade schools,
plumbers, yeah. And I think they're terrific.
Yeah. Well, that was a big deal. Morris Driscoll, who was vice chairman of your committee, but he was Mr. Votech in Montana.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Intriguing, for sure. You, as the convention went on, how did you assess things? Did you ever look at it and say, boy, this isn't going the way it's supposed to go, or were you feeling pretty good about things?
The only thing I looked at, really, I say, well, I like this. It's a lot better than what we had. I like this, but I don't know how it's going to float up in northeast Montana.
So bring that. Tell me about once it was done, and you had to promote it. What did you do up in your area to promote it?
I went to various meetings, and of course we had legislators who were really opposed to the new Constitution. Just couldn't stand it. And they'd pick out one little thing like irrigation. Well, we said in the Constitution that a city had better rights than a farmer. And that didn't float very well.
Well, actually, when they counted the votes, most of rural Montana opposed the Constitution.
Yeah.
And most of urban Montana voted for it.
Yeah.
Was there this had happened within a decade of reapportionment, which kind of was stripped some power from rural Montana. Was there a fear of change or too much change coming too fast?
There was certainly a fear that we were going to lose too much political power. Because after all, instead of 2 in Valley County and 2 up in Scobie area.
Yeah.
And
every county got 1 senator.
Yeah.
No matter how big or small they were.
Yeah.
In the old days.
Yes. And there was a lot of, well, you didn't do enough. And there was others, who would pick out one little sentence. like Lloyd Barnard
Yeah.
from Scobie, really big on education. But there was something in there that he thought was bad. And I argued with him kind of right in front of the whole audience that I said that, Lloyd, at least this way our small schools have a chance to be funded properly.
Yeah.
And of course, this was in a period when the legislatives wanted to get rid of all the small schools.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't like that because small schools are just not as efficient.
Yeah.
I mean,
Of course, efficiency, they always said that, the fascists could make the trains run on time,
yeah,
but it isn't necessarily good government.
no. But
So you argued a bit with Lloyd, but
yeah, with him,
Yeah.
and then the well-known and well-loved coach right in Nashua didn't like it that it was every year legislature.
right.
He thought, well, this was going to be professional legislators. Well, I told him, really, how it is now, the only way that you can get there is if your employer will pay you while you're gone,
Yeah.
or you're retired.
Yeah. The annual sessions was the first thing to go in an amendment.
Yeah,
I was working in state government when we had annual sessions, 73, 74, 75. And so it was an interesting experiment, and I think I'd go back to it. Let me ask you this before we're getting close to closing down this discussion. I've enjoyed it so much. Your overall reflections, looking back on it now 50 years, what do you think of your work?
we did fantastic.
Good. Yeah, yeah.
Not,
Not perfect,
no.
but
No, there's things right here that I would, in the section I was on,
yeah, you changed something, but
yeah, I'd get rid of it. What's the limitation? Why are we got, it was
that silly stuff. Yeah.
sales tax.
They
No.
put that on afterwards. You didn't put it in there.
Yes, we did.
The sales tax limitation?
Yes.
Oh, that was legislature did it afterwards.
They did.
Yeah, they did. You didn't do that.
I
You
thought
followed
we did.
Roger Barber's advice about doing less. Yeah.
Well,
But you like the product.
yes. Now more so than then.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you as a citizen of Montana, I appreciate the work every one of you did to make this product what it is. It's a marvelous document that reflects well upon the citizens of Montana, and it reflects well upon the citizen delegates like yourself, really. Really. A great appreciation for that. You can look back and, Barb can say, my dad was there and helped write this thing.
Yeah.
Well, we're wrapping up. It's been a great conversation. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm glad we could get you in the studio. and hopefully we'll do it another time. And in the meantime, for our audience, we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Last Best Constitution.